Welcome to Perceptions Today. It's UK date 28th of June 2022, and this is Zoom Chat 40 discussing consciousness, bugs, podcasts, and videos, which will be turned into a series called Perceptions Today Community Resources. Remember, we are recording this for the Perceptions Today podcast and also streaming it to YouTube for the first time. So keep this in mind when you're talking. And remember to keep things private if you don't want it onto the podcast or the actual video that's going out. Perception Today looks into consciousness research into all areas. I am your host, Paul, and your co-host will be Ian D.W. Hawkins and also CentredAwareness, known as Melissa, who will join us at a later date. What I would like to tell you all is a public service announcement that we have live events coming up. And one of those is the 30th of June, at 7 p.m., which is Laird Scranton, coming back for a return visit to discuss further information and his thoughts on energy, how it interrelates with multiple cultures and also their symbolism there. Then on the 12th of July, we have Anthony Peake, who will be talking about his new book, Cheating the Ferryman, which will be two events, UK time, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., then 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. If you want to help out with the rest of the actual account and help us reach more people, those people with questions, those who are experiencers, those that are researchers, and all the others in between, please subscribe to Perceptions Today, that's oneword.com, and also go to the podcasts or the YouTube channels or the social media pages, which we have like Instagram. And if you like the actual page and also make comments, that would be superb. And what we will be able to do is host this further and get more people to come and discuss topics, and we will find out more information as we go. So I'd like to welcome my co-host, Ian Hawkins.
Hey, how you doing? Are you ready?
I'm very ready. I have to say that after all the technical difficulties, we are on course for having a very good conversation, I feel. We found the audio, and the last time that we had this, we managed to put together a good selection of books, which I have a Dropbox link to if anybody's of interest to that, and I can post that into the YouTube channel to actually put it there, but I'm putting it into the chat box in Zoom at this present time. It was roughly 15 to 20 different books, and we're also discussing different videos that we found that were of interest. So we can obviously go from there. I won't put Ian on the spot and discuss his first favorite book of the week, but I will pick one out of my list that I've got going, which we'll see if people have actually read it, if we're happy with that. And again, at any point, we can put hands up or just interrupt, because lo and behold, we're a small number of people at this present time, so we know that we won't cause much of a problem.
Sounds good, buddy. Sounds good.
Excellent. So one of the books that I would say is very fascinating is, and we'll get this correct, is James Oryx's Tryptamine Palace 5-MeO DMT and the Sonoran Desert Toad. And again, it's also known as the Bufo Alvarius Toad. It's a fantastic book going into details. And if you haven't read it, or it'd be interesting to find out if anyone has read it in the room and also out there in YouTube.
I can't say that I have. No. In fact, I'll be perfectly honest. I thought that toads and toad licking was a bit of a, recreational pastime for teenagers. I didn't realize how seriously people take it. And I mean no disrespect with that.
Well, this particular way of getting it is actually getting the venom to be ejected from its glands rather than licking the back of it. And unfortunately, the author died, I think it's a couple of years ago, in an accident in a paragliding one. He was an Australian and unfortunately hit obviously the wrong kind of wind currents. And he was gone for 12 days in a competition. And he's been doing many competitions over many years. And it was one of his good research. So Brad Jones is coming back, hopefully. Now, who's letting him in? I'll let him in, shall I?
Yeah.
I've put the link here. You can find it quite easily, and hopefully I wonder if I can open up the chat box on YouTube at the same time. So those that are listening, this is the first time we've gone live, so we might be having real good fun at this. But bear with us as we're trying to sort things out. And let's see where we are. I got too many window tabs open. So here we are. We got to say something. I can actually post into YouTube at the same time. And there we are. And there's the live chat. And at the moment, what's going on with people watching? If you've there's only one person watching it, it's probably me. So going back to this, we have the book there, and you can pick it up quite easily. The links I'm putting in are coming from Goodreads, because that way you can find your own source to actually pick up the book at this time. Now, Ian, I presume you're running off your laptop tonight.
No, I've connected everything up to my PC now. So now I'm
excellent. So when you click the link, does that book title, does that book cover ring any bells?
No.
Okay. So again, because he is very much well known and he wrote one of the first books on this subject, if you type into any search engine James Orrick and podcast, you'll find he's appeared on many different people's radar and given very good interviews, and they're out there, which is nice to have, discussing how he got into psychedelics and why he got into 5-MeO DMT and was doing such a heavy research into this. He was also a big fan of Burning Man as well. I'm going to that. And again, you were talking about that, weren't you, Myron?
Yeah, I've actually done Burning Man 2 or 3 times. Back in the old days, before it became such a social event. Now it's like a big party, but 20 years ago, it really was primitive. And right out in the middle of the desert without much of anything. You had to bring whatever you wanted to bring, but we did a really, really cool building of a tree, and everybody could contribute to the tree anything they wanted to contribute. And the tree got to be 60 feet tall, 40 feet around. And then, of course, we burned it in a big ceremony during the full moon. And this is a flat plain out in the middle of the desert, so there's really nothing. There's nothing around you at all. There's nothing else to burn. So sagebrush, that's about it. But in those old days, before it got to be such a big deal, a social event more than spiritual, it was really quite amazing. Now, of course, a lot of people got pretty stoned, but that goes without saying. But the event itself was kind of like going back in time, going back to another kind of consciousness that has been lost.
That sounds like a real amazing experience, because you're taking so much out of your everyday life, which is routine, and you're not around all the buildings and civilization as you know it. So yeah, I can imagine how you could easily be pulled into feeling of another reality and consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if you went to a village in the Amazon or something, and these people had seen almost no white people, and then you did a ritual there. I mean, I can imagine looking at their ritual. Well, this is kind of, I don't know what happened. It's sort of just the fact that we were out in the open and the stars were just spectacular. You could see the Milky Way, and you could see, I mean, there was no light from any city at all. So,
I mean, that'd be fantastic. I mean, I've lucky enough seen it from the Southern Hemisphere when there's been no streetlights around, but to have that kind of desert, clean air, dry heat to see the night sky and see it in all its glory would be fantastic.
It was spectacular. And then people brought, they were told that they could bring any kind of musical instrument they wanted to bring, percussion or flutes or anything. And most people realized that it was going to be very, very hot, so they didn't want to take like violins or something because it would just destroy the instrument. It warps it. It's very dangerous to take your violin out in the middle of the desert when it's really hot. So it was mostly percussion instruments, and it's really interesting what happened. So it took like hours to build the tree, like all day and most of that night, just to build the tree, just to stack things up. And then then people started just dancing around the tree, and nobody told anybody to do any of these things. They just started doing it. So around in a circle, they were going around the tree.
Oh, definitely. I've got something to say on that, but when Ryan comes back in, because it was going to be talking about percussion and drumming and the vibration. And lo and behold, he's now made it back in. He was having difficulty with his phone. And as he comes from 400 drums, that will be obviously on topic with what we're discussing at the moment.
Oh yeah, there's no question that the rhythm got to be.
I just want to check with Ryan to make sure that he's okay, and then we can get him in on the conversation as well. Are you there?
I am here, but my audio is hardly working, so I can only just hear you guys.
That's okay. You're also being recorded here, and also you're live on our very first broadcast onto YouTube at the same time. So it will be good fun to have you because we had chaos before, so we can do this quite easily. But your audio sounds okay.
Yeah, I can only just barely hear you, so I'm just gonna probably listen for a little bit as much as I can, and then I gotta hop off and take another call in a little bit. Happy I could make it at least for a bit of time.
Well, it's nice to see you. It sounds like you've got a bag of crisps there, and you're kind of rustling them at the same time.
Oh yeah, this is a vape bowl of cannabis right here.
Okay, right. I was going to say, and we were just discussing the fact about vibration and drumming and how it was, it always has an effect. And Myron was talking about it at Burning Man. And I think just that kind of sound pattern, when it comes from drums, really does hit the consciousness and the instinct of the human to suddenly just get lost in it for some reason. And I was going to say that you probably know something about that, working in the 400 drums charity and have talked to a lot of people who use these instruments.
Yeah, well, in general, like a drum is the first instrument that people would have been able to make, and almost like replicating what you can do with your mouth, almost, and what it can start to do with different tempos. And the tone of the drum is it can put you into different trance states. And I know scientifically that it does both heal the brain and is neurogenerative to new neurons, new brain patterns and stuff. And I think a lot of that will depend on the specific kind of instrument, the way that it's used, like shamanically. But I think one of the best, besides like the Canadian, North American, indigenous kind of situation, I think one of the best examples of this is the Vooght tradition in Gabon in Africa. They're the religion and culture that uses iboga. And they have
sorry for interrupting, but Natural Born Alchemist
drumming in the world, and it itself, just the drums without the compound, induces theta brainwave states and such. So
definitely, have you spoken to Natural Born Alchemist?
So fascinating.
Can you hear me, Ryan?
Pardon?
Yeah, exactly. I knew there was technical difficulties. I was going to say, you were mentioning the tribe, and I was going to say Natural Born Alchemist actually went and did the ceremonies to be actually adopted by the tribe, and he went through the whole iboga bit and also through the drums on their own as well. So he's got an amazing podcast talking about it, and he came and spoke with us, and I'm sure Ian, Brad, and Myron were here, weren't you all? And there goes the
I'll definitely have to check out that episode.
I haven't actually loaded it up yet, but on his own one, he's got conversations about it. Are you still there, Ian? No. Myron, because you were there for that one.
Yeah, well, I'll just finish up about what I was saying. Most of the people that had come out that night had never done this before. And because Burning Man is fairly new at this time. And what was fascinating was that everybody sort of reverted back to the primitive. I mean, it was just, they weren't all stoned, they weren't all, on altered states, drugs, or anything else. Some were, but not everybody. And there were about 200 people there. And I mean, it was an amazing experience, not just the rhythm of the instruments, but what the whole drama or stage of it did. I mean, you've got this beautiful sky that's you don't see in the city at all, and then you've got the burning tree that's 60 feet tall, 30, 40 feet around, and that's the only light in the middle of the whole desert. It's that tree burning. And then you got people dancing and doing whatever they want to do around it. And so even without drugs or with drugs, either way, people's consciousness was completely altered. A lot of people just had cymbals, and there were a lot of wood flutes, which is one of the oldest instruments in the world. People used to have been playing wood flutes for 10,000 years. And there was a lot of drumming, and of course, and but a lot of like 10 instruments too, like handmade stuff. And it was just an amazing experience. And I think that it gets your unconscious open to another time that your brain remembers, maybe the reptilian brain even remembers. And I think that when that happens, your consciousness alters. And, in my case, of course, I see visions and all that stuff because of the epilepsy. But when I was seeing all kinds of wild, wonderful things, and I wasn't taking any drug altering materials. And all I can say is it was all night. And by the time the morning had hit, of course, the tree had burned down to just smoke, and everybody was pretty wiped out, but also elated. It was really an amazing experience that was just totally impromptu. I mean, there was nobody leading it. Nobody told anybody to do anything. It was just spontaneous. It wasn't planned.
I think it gets to like a hive mind, doesn't it? You get in sync in a semi way when you're with people and start doing that.
You do. And if you're out in an open situation like that, you can't help but get involved because it pulls you in by just the activity alone. It was an amazing evening. Normally, I would never go to something like Burning Man, but I decided to try it out. And now, of course, it's people bring huge art pieces, and it's very sophisticated now, and so it's not quite so primitive. But back there then, 20, 25 years ago, whatever that was, it was really, really into the old brain. I mean, it opened up portals for people that were reporting that the next day. And a lot of them had not been on any kind of mind altering drugs. And it still opened up their DMT part of their brains or whatever it did, but certainly opened mine up. It was a visual night for me. I was seeing everything you could think of. And so I guess the bottom line of that experience is that if you create a certain kind of environment for consciousness to open, it'll open. It's almost very difficult to stop it from opening. If you're in that kind of group, there's a kind of group hypnosis that takes place that people, even ones who would resist it. Now, of course, these are people who traveled a long way to come to this. So we had a sort of control group, because normally you're not going to come to Burning Man in the middle of nowhere if you're not interested in it. And so this is kind of a special group. But I must tell you, it was a great experience, and I can imagine what a massive drumming situation would be like.
I would have to say that when it comes to that, you don't have many people coming with bad intentions to those kind of events. And I have to say, it's a nice warm welcome to Pete from Paranormal Blip. We haven't spoken to you for a while. How are you doing? Tonight, I will just be talking to icons. Pete might not be able to talk at this present time, I've just decided. And you're also live on YouTube as well. So that's always a good one to say. I was going to mention one of the next books, which I thought might be of interest. Oh,
hi, sorry.
That's okay.
I always it takes me a few seconds to navigate this Zoom platform. How are you all? Good, thank you. Thank you for that reply. Hey there, hello everybody. I'm very much looking forward to listening and catching up. I'm sorry that I missed the part one of this, but it's good to join tonight. So I probably won't speak that much, but I feel like I've got quite a lot of catching up to do in terms of this, all of these things that you're discussing. But it's wonderful to be here and to join you.
Oh, it's great to be able to talk to you. You did actually pick up the link for the previous book, Excel kind of spreadsheet PDF file that I sent a week back.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah.
So that's what we were picking up there. And obviously we'll do the similar kind of thing with the information that we're putting out tonight, which is good. And by the way, your latest actual episode of 23, I think it was, about your synchronicity, it's quite amazing that you were talking about the bear bit, and then obviously the website actually had 4 bear in it. And I wondered if you actually picked up on that or not.
Oh, I see. That's what you meant about the bear. I didn't quite work out what you meant about the bear.
You were talking about synchronicities. You talked about that, and then you're talking about bear killing, and then you were talking about picking up names and seeing how frequent they are. And lo and behold, the actual website has 4 bear in it. And I thought that was really funny, being a synchronicity.
And maybe he was attacked by 4 bears.
Do not get me onto the joke about four candles.
No, that's a British classic. That. Well, that's good, isn't it? 4 candles.
So anyway, that's always worthwhile. And Ryan from 400 Drums is in, but he's got a bit of audio difficulties, so he'll be listening as well. But we were just discussing about Burning Man, and also James Orrock, who did the Tryptamine Palace book, which was about the Sonoran Desert toad. So that we're just kind of rolling through at the moment on some of the books that we like. And we're thinking about turning this, as I said, into a Perception Today community resources kind of series that we might do over a period of time when we're doing other things, because the stuff that we're learning from other people and what they're looking at and seeing obviously covers books, videos, podcasts, and any other kind of media. And it's nice to have those included, and we're trying to create a hub of information.
Yeah, sounds fantastic.
Which would be good. All right. The delay there was me getting a message from other people, and I was just going, okay, right, I'll just respond to that quite easily. And we will go on to another one if people are quite happy, or if somebody's got a suggestion. Otherwise, I've got another book that I tend to feel is worth people's time.
I read The Guardian. Does everybody know The Guardian?
Nope, I'm not familiar with that.
It's by Daniel Dennett. I think that's the guy's name.
I'll look him up as we go along.
I think that's his name. other minds, the octopus, sea, and the deep origins of consciousness and things like that are all part of this. But I found it pretty fascinating, especially about the octopus. I mean, it's such an advanced creature.
Definitely.
So amazing.
The fact that we recently learned in the last few months that it got self-editing genes for removing RNA in its brain, and also where we only have 25,000 genomes, an octopus has up to 33,000, and it's phenomenal when it comes down to that.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
And again, they can't find in the fossil record the kind of beginning evolution point, which at this present time is fascinating that you can't find it. It's like at one point you had nothing, then you suddenly find this.
Yeah, something get really big.
I found the book, and yes, it's Daniel C. Dennett. No,
So it is Dennett. Okay. Yeah.
Hang on, did I just get it wrong? I know, because I just got the Guardian book, and then I was just going to get the link to it. Yeah. So why is that not coming up properly for me? It's being referred to in another article, which I was trying to pull it out from. But when it comes down to obviously cephalopod family, it's just phenomenal on those things to get into. I was trying to find an actual marine biologist to talk to about this, and I've contacted a few, and obviously everyone's time busy, but I might get a contact back, which would be good on that one. If people are interested in that, and we can have a conversation.
Yeah, go for it. Sorry, I was just listening to what you were saying. I thought you were
it's
on
okay. I'll put my hand up when I want a response from people. It'll be fine. Don't worry. We'll get it all going quite happily here. So I'm just pulling up the link while I was talking about Daniel C. Dennett and getting that together. And it also has links to some of the other books that he has read, which is worthwhile having. Right, so Ryan's having difficulties with his audio, which is a bit of an unfortunate thing there. And I've got the link that we want for. Right. So that's the link for Dennett, the second one. The first one is, I was trying to copy that out, but I unfortunately put it in. But there's also another good book to read when we've finished with the topic of obviously octopus and other related bits. I mean, Ian, where have you stood on knowing about this particular topic or not?
Knowing about octopi and stuff like that.
Anything on the intelligence level or anything like that?
A reasonable amount. So I quite, like I said, I quite like cryptids and stuff like that. So I've always been interested in the possibility, and I have done a bit of study on squids and the intelligence of octopus and things like that. And yeah, they are incredibly smart. Maybe not so much the squid, but the octopus definitely. It's yeah, it's almost, well, I don't want to compare it to a dolphin, but dolphins also quite high up there in terms of intelligence. And yeah, they do seem to sort of display some sort of emotional intelligence and high level problem solving.
And also the fact of the color coordination and communication via color.
Right. So there's a lot going on there. And cuttlefish also are quite adept at communication like that. And
same family, because they come again with, you got the Nautilus as well, all that routine.
Right. So personally, I think there's something to it. And there's no harm in the belief that there is. But to ignore it completely seems very ignorant, because I don't think you can say that every animal behaves like that. And so, yeah, if you want to consider them a special case or special cases, then yeah, absolutely. I think there is something in it. What that something is, couldn't tell you, but yeah.
Okay, I'd just like to welcome Jonah D into the room and just give a brief explanation that we're going out live to one, YouTube, and also two, we're recording here. So just remember to keep any private information to yourself or just tell me to edit it, but I can't do the one for the live stream at present straight to YouTube. And if you want to talk to us, we have, obviously, we can just let you come off mic and say hello and give a brief 30-second introduction of yourself if you want. And obviously feel free to contribute to the talk on the different bits on either books, podcasts, videos relating to consciousness as we go along. So welcome.
Thanks for inviting me, actually. Kind of just coming in the halfway through, so I'm just going to be in here listening. My name's Jonah. I'm the host of the Blue Collar Enlightenment Show, a podcast. Yeah, so this sounds interesting. I'll just sit in the background and listen.
Excellent. Thank you for coming, because obviously we've been communicating via Twitter, and sometimes when people come from one room to another platform, they've got different names, so it's difficult to connect them too, as you can imagine. So always amusing to ourselves on this, and welcome. It will be fun, and I will put into the chat box if you've got access to it, or if you want, I can put it into your direct messaging, a previous file that we created with a load of different books that is basically a PDF telling you who recommended them and also links to those books. So would you like it here in the chat box, or would you like it direct to your Twitter direct messaging?
Let's go directly to my Twitter, so when I'm on my way home, I can just look it up.
Excellent. It's always worthwhile because some people don't have the opportunity to handle the phone and pick up the information straight out of it. So now that that's been placed straight there, which is good and happy. So yeah, Myron, I think you obviously know as well that there's so much out there with ocean life forms. And again, those that we haven't found, there's so many things that worthwhile contemplating and investigating.
Well, I know that I read a book on animal intelligence and consciousness. And the fact that we've sort of ignored animal intelligence and consciousness is sort of like put it out. I remember when I was young, dinosaurs were supposed to be really stupid, and they were really big and really ignorant and stupid. And they found out, well, maybe they weren't so stupid after all. And then they found out, that crows communicate with each other. They have death rituals just like human beings do for their dead comrades, and they can problem solve. And our animal intelligence is like a new field almost. I say in the last 30, 40 years, and it's remarkable what you don't know about the animals on our own planet. And I even read a book on how your dog manipulates you and trains you.
Oh yeah, I could well believe that. The same with cats. I mean,
yes.
When you've told us about that, we obviously have to remember about Rupert Sheldrake and the communication with dogs that way.
Right. So when you read those books, you kind of laugh at yourself and you realize, wait a minute, yeah, my cat does do that. And then I am being manipulated. They're very, very gifted and smart about how to handle human beings. And then I remember reading this contrast between a wolf, a regular wild wolf, and say a shepherd, which is as close to a wolf as you're going to get. And the wolf is totally unpredictable, or the shepherd is predictable. But the wolf is so unpredictable that you never know what it's going to do. It might just be passive for a while and then just turn you up. And you just don't know, because it's still primitive. It's still part of its own world and its own cosmology. and the shepherd is part of the human cosmology. And it's just fascinating when you look into consciousness in animals. I was just blown away by, just not just dolphins, but blue whales and the giant crab. I think we talked about that one. That has consciousness and it's huge. It's really giant, but it's very smart. And I forgot who was talking about Dawkins or somebody. One of those guys.
Ian was talking about dolphins just a minute ago, but before we go there, I'd just like to welcome our co-host who's just woken up in Australia.
Melissa, how you doing?
Melissa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, great.
You're looking good for 5 o'clock in the morning.
Thanks. No, is my video on?
No, I'm joking with
my
you.
God.
I'm pulling your leg.
Oh my God, you just gave me a heart attack. Yeah, I made it today.
That's okay. We had 40 minutes of chaos before. And again, as you will be told, like the rest of us, that we're going out live to YouTube as well and being recorded here.
Okay, nice. What happened before?
I managed to, in one location, put the previous week's invite in instead of today's invite. So some people went to one invite and got in, some went to another and went to last week's, which is quite good because time travel's fantastic. So it's glad to see you that you're here, which is nice.
Thank you.
And as I don't think I mentioned to Jonah, and also just for a reminder for yourself, on Thursday, UK at 7 p.m, we got Laird Scranton coming to talk, as you know, and that would be great. If you're not familiar with him, Jonah, he's into symbolism, talks about the Maori culture, Dogon, Egyptians, and also Chinese, Tibetans, and also up into Skabra. And it's all about how the symbology of some of their science, which goes into biology, quantum physics, and also I think there's also the chemistry angle as well that's in there, but it's how it's all been kind of connected and written down or talked verbally and how we're picking things up. So that will be a fantastic one. But just going back to talking on animals manipulating you and knowing things, Myron was talking about dogs and how they can manipulate you as well as cats. And if you've ever read Rupert Sheldrake's book, Dogs That Know That When Their Owners Are Coming Home and Other Unexplained Powers of Animals, that is a fantastic book, which I've just put into the chat message there.
Yeah, I have that one. That is a fascinating book. And, the fact that dogs and cats can tell you when you're going to have a seizure. I have epilepsy, which other people don't know that. I have epilepsy, and my cat knows when I'm going to have a seizure. There's no question. And I have friends where the animal will come and sit on them before they even know they're going to have a seizure. And then they sit and wait until the seizure is over, and they will not leave until that's done, whether it's a dog or a cat. And at first science thought, oh, this is nonsense. The neurologists thought that was just nonsense. So there are a bunch of controlled experiments in prison on prisoners that had epilepsy, and they put some epilepsy dogs around them and stuff, and what they call quote epilepsy dogs. And sure enough, they could tell you within minutes of whether you were going to have a seizure or not. Well, these are tonic-clonic seizures, the one where you lose control. And the dog or the cat can know. And so then they were running around like crazy trying to figure out, well, how could they know that? And, then they think that when you're going to have a seizure, that your body gives off a different odor, subtle odor that, since a dog has that ability to smell 400 times better than we do, it picks up on it. and instantly knows that it's coming. And this friend of mine's dog will not leave her until the seizure is complete. I mean complete. That's the postictal part. After the seizure is over and she's in recovery, which can go on for hours, the dog still will not leave her side. It's a fascinating thing. So now,
Definitely. I just want to bring Melissa in because she's got a question here at this point. And also, nice to see you, Miro. And out there in YouTube, we've got Ricardo is also picking up the live stream, which is great. Melissa?
what'd you do?
Sorry, I'm just trying to get used to these controls on Zoom. I was just going to add to that. There was also a story about a dog where he saved his owner from getting cancer, and there was something on her leg, and he kept licking her leg, and and she wasn't quite sure, but he was licking it in a particular spot. And when she went to the doctor, she found out that she had cancer right in that very spot where the dog kept licking it. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, that was in that book too that I read on.
Was it?
Yeah, it was called something like the diagnostic ability of animals or something like that. I don't even remember the title, but it was something like that. And or maybe it was a podcast. I'm not really sure. You gotta.
So, okay, I was just checking on what was going on. I thought Melissa was going to talk more as I was switching screens and looking up for any reference to dogs pulling up the cancer, which I do know of, and I just wanted to get an article to bring it in that was genuine rather than that. Pete?
Yeah, hi. The cancer sniffing dogs. That's quite an ability that they have, isn't it? Hey, hello, Melissa, by the way. Long time no speaky.
Hi,
I'm looking out into
you?
a cow of fields. No, not a cow of fields. Into a field of cows. I said a cow of fields.
I do like a good word twist around, which is quite nice.
Yeah, well, you get a lot from me. Now, listen, does anybody know about dogs and other animals in relation to people that are close to death? And I've got like a very vague kind of memory of a connection between animals and like animals basically knowing that people are going to die. Can anybody speak about that, please?
I can, if you want.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I'm going to look up to see if I can find a book or an article to help on this as well.
They started using, my ex-wife's a doctor, and she was working in a lot of emergency wards and stuff, and they used to bring in animals, especially dogs and cats, and the cat would literally pick the patient that was terminal. And they're not reading any signs, so they're smelling something, and they know this person is terminal. The cat goes to that person, stays on the bed, will not move until that person is no longer alive. Now, how they know that, no one really has figured that out yet, but the cat will do that. And a dog will do that too. But the one I read about was this cat that was in these hospitals, more than one, and they knew all about whether this person was terminal or not. So it was really kind of a fascinating thing. And this cat would not leave this person until they passed away. Even if it took 3 or 4 days or a week, that would always be there as a companion. So it's an amazing, phenomenal thing to watch.
Oh, definitely. I've just been able to pull up an article and put that into the chat section as well. If that will be of interest to anyone, I'm going to see what's happening in the YouTube one because it's not actually linked to us. So I'm going to put a few links in there. And I think we still got Ricardo is viewing from YouTube, and we haven't actually seen if Miro can chat yet. Then we go to Pete. Unless Pete, have you still got your hand up?
Yeah, so just to say, yeah, thank you, Myron. That's excellent. But what do you think is happening there? Because of course, you know, scientists are going to say that they smell something or whatever, but to me, it's to do with empathy, and it's to do with a kind of connection that goes beyond any kind of chemical sense. What can you just maybe speculate? But you know, speculate from a kind of place of experience.
Well, I know that in the epilepsy situation, epileptics can give off a tell that even humans can recognize, but humans are not conscious enough to catch it. They're too distracted by life and other things. Even though most scientists who have started to study this, which is fairly new, especially about epileptics, is that it has something to do with the change of chemistry in the body before the seizure, the pre-ictal part of the seizure, which is just a small seizure. It's called an aura. And these animals will know before the aura that this aura is going to take place, and then a seizure will take place. The aura is really a small seizure. But it's so two things. One, when everybody doubted it, they went, and then they saw the evidence of it. They went to smell almost immediately. And then after that, they looked into humans give off a tell. You know, it's like a gambling terminology. It has to do with, you know, you can watch somebody, you can tell what card they're going to play or how they're going to do this, because they give off a tell. Well, supposedly human beings give off a tell for the aura. And the animal sees the tell and reacts to it. I don't think that's true. I think it's something to do with body chemistry and has to do with smell that humans don't smell. They just don't smell it. Because my old cat, Jessie, who's passed away years ago, she would know 5 minutes, 20 minutes before, sometimes, before my seizure would actually come. And she would come and just stay right next to me. She would not move. And then I would, after a while, I got really freaked out. I kept thinking, oh my God, I guess I'm going to have a seizure. Because she wouldn't move. So I wasn't doing any telling that I knew of. So it had to have something to do with the smell, with the odor given off by the aura. And when the aura hit, she would get right on my chest and would not move. Now I didn't have grand mal's at this time, atomic clonoplex, these consciousness. I had these complex partial ones. And she stayed with me the whole time that I had the seizure. And then when it was over, she wouldn't leave until she was convinced that I was completely recovered. So I think there's a lot of research yet to be done on all of this. And it's just that. I have all kinds of people in a support group that I was in. A very large support group for epilepsy, and most of them had animals, and most of their animals knew that they were going to have seizures. So that tells you that there's a lot of corroboration of this event in animals. And I'm sure it's true of other illnesses like cancer.
I'm sure there is, yeah.
I've heard of that too.
I mean, we've obviously dulled ourselves down so that we can actually function and not look for so many threats. Otherwise, we'll just be standing still in a manner where, obviously, if you're a predator or prey, you're going to have most of your senses heightened up to make sure that you aren't the next thing on the list to be taken over, so to speak. Miro, are you there?
Can you hear me? I am here, but I don't know if you're okay. I always have trouble with microphone, it's still old phone.
It's great quality compared to the Twitter one stream with the audio sometimes. So no, it's very impressive, nice and clear. And
Okay.
just to let you know, all the links that we've been putting in the chat box in the Zoom are now in the YouTube live video at present. So those people that are listening, they can actually click on those to see the books and videos that we've been discussing, which I think is good.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I did in past some, I was watching some videos in past. Yeah, I find some of them. Yes, that's great. That's good.
Oh, definitely. We're trying to build a resource and basically kind of a hub so that if people ever ask what should we go and look at, there'd be, say, a kind of spreadsheet that we can go to and talk to people. And if they got particular subjects, we can fill it in that way and make life easy.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah. I'm still working and I need to do something.
That's okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have too much to say except that if later on I can say what Myron was asking about Zoroaster and Mithraism have affected Christianity in Europe. I can mention that again if that will be questioned. Yeah.
So you can finish your work. That's not a problem. We will continue on the other bits and pieces, which is good. I know that prior to that, I'd slipped in Jacques Vallée's Passport to Magonia. That is another great book to have read. Has anybody read it in the room?
I don't know.
Tumbleweeds everywhere. Right. So what you'll find is the cross-referencing ufology and folklore and seeing commonalities within it over the historical period of time. And again, it's worthwhile diving into.
It's definitely interesting. What I said, just very quickly, how I said before, I see everything that all universe is inside you. And all those characters that are described many times in those books or mythology are characters that that are psyche, but it's only different feelings are personalized. Yes, maybe I can talk a little bit more about that, but that's how I see it. So everything is actually inside us, or those are those forces that we feel and we personalize, they give them name and even forms. That's how they appear on different books. They have different forms, different names, but they are same things. There is just one consciousness. That's the things that we experience that.
Oh, definitely. It's the way that you interpret it.
Yeah. Okay. For now, we'll be done speaking. I will maybe talk later. Okay. Bye for now.
Look forward to that. I don't know if anyone's actually clicked on the link to see the back page or the quick description on Passport to Magonia. I'm checking with Ian because Ian looks like he's got that dead man stare in his picture that he's actually been looking at it.
Looking at what? Sorry, I'm checking out this YouTube thing that you said to me to look at.
Okay, so anyway, if you're
can I just stop you just for a second? On the feed from YouTube, it is just Myron's cam right now.
It will only be a live video feed. So we're all pictures, we won't show up. If we went to visual
Myron right now, as long as Myron's aware of that.
I did mention this, so
okay, cool. So what did you want me to do? You want me to like it?
I was just going to say to you that if you were going to read the book on Passport to Magonia, again, as it's talking about the cultural ways that we take in things. So when they've kind of been reporting observations on aerial objects designed as, say, we call them flying saucers, they're also along the narratives of landing made by these are like kind of commonplace. And when they're looking at the psychological and physical characteristics, it goes into what their kind of occupants have done by the reports from other people. And
we talking Passport to Magonia? So
Yeah.
you just said?
I asked you if you'd read it or not.
Yes. Yes, I've got that in my collection. That's an amazing book.
Well, you can go a little bit deeper if you want on this one, just to entertain the others with what you felt about it.
Well, my take, and I think the sort of general overview of the book is that what people's individual perceptions of these phenomena are is very much individual to them, but it's all part of one bigger thing that we don't quite know what it is. But the way it interacts with you and you interact with it is going to be in a way that is somewhat determined by you. So fairies and things like that are easily the same as grey aliens. It's just all down to do with how the person experiencing it, how their belief systems work, what they personally believe they're going through. It's very complicated, but I think the nutshell is that there is something out there that chooses to interact with us in very strange ways. And although we may perceive all these events as being separate from one another, they're all actually the same thing.
Very much so. And again, it condenses so many great topics as well. So you don't have to read so many other books to get a feeling for it. Where most of us, as we have discussed before, have got towering book fortresses that we need to read at this present time. And any of Jacques Vallée's books are fantastic to read. And especially let's get this right. Witness to Another World was a film I think we discussed in the last one about an Argentinian shepherd who was exposed to an aerial event as a 9-year-old. It traumatized him in such a way that he basically became a hermit and kept away from society and everything else. But at the time, Jacques Vallée went and talked to him when it happened. And then this film has gone back to him, and he's now in his 40s. And they go back and they discuss it, but some strange things actually happen when they try and take him into regression for hypnotherapy. So there's basically, in a room, they got the film crew, they got lighting, they got him, they've got Jacques Vallée, and they've also got the guy who's put the money and narrating it and writing it together. And when they start taking him back, it's almost as if they all kind of black out for a short period of time, which is very strange. From one of the viewings of the film and also listening to some other podcasts, some people say that maybe once you take people into a hypnotic state, those kind of events that they might have had in their past history are actually happening at that time, because time doesn't really exist in that state. And it's really interesting to contemplate.
It's a possibility, and I'm going to let Myron get in just 2 seconds. I'd be quite careful when it comes to regression and things like that. It's very, very easy to get bad results. And my dad's been
you can't lead people. You got to have questions that are very neutral.
Dude, it's not even so much that. You can lead them without even meaning to lead them.
Well, if they see you, yeah.
I mean,
micro expressions and stuff, yeah.
If just the very fact that someone says to them, "Hey, you should go for regression therapy. It could be this," that might be enough to change the whole event in itself.
Yeah, I wouldn't get anyone to do that.
Well, do you just grab some guy off the street who's been talking about an event he had?
No, I said I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't get them to go and do that. That's what I said.
But yeah, it sounds good on paper, but I wouldn't put a whole lot of weight in it per se. Yeah, it's a tricky thing. But yeah, Myron, sorry, you wanted to say something.
I'm just going to take this. Okay. I remember that there's a couple of books that I really thought that I'm sure most people have read. One of them is The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. And the other one is Principles of Psychology, I think it's called. And that's by William James. But
could I ask you what the first one was again? I didn't quite hear it.
The Varieties of Religious Experience.
Varieties.
And it's wonderful. I mean, it's absolutely stunningly brilliant, especially when you consider that it was written 100 years ago. But he goes into depth of the overlap of consciousness and uses the psychological profile in order to tie all of these events together. And I think he moved further down the road than Jung did, as a matter of fact. Anyway, so I really recommend The Varieties of Religious Experience. It's just an amazing book. And the Principles of Psychology are also really interesting. But considering when he wrote it, and people still read it today in school, in medical school, and in psychology school. So I wanted to talk a little bit about William James and kind of probably, this generation doesn't know much about them one way or the other, but I can't recommend him enough. He really added to my understanding of the varieties of religious experience and how they are connected and why they're connected in the brain. And he didn't have MRIs and all that kind of stuff to show data from. It was all researched and anecdotal stuff from interviews with all kinds of religious people and their experiences. And then he put it in this very famous book, The Varieties of Religious Experience. And I think everybody's probably read the breakdown of the bicameral line by Julian James.
I've got it on my bookshelf. I haven't got it to read yet, but I've just found the book that you were mentioning and put it into the major chat.
It's great. It's just great. A lot of these are pretty old, but that doesn't mean they're not good. There's a book on consciousness by well, but anyway, the point of it is that the point I was making was that the cross-referencing of this information from, say, it's the origin of the explanation of consciousness, say, in the 1880s, 90s, 1900, 1910, and 20. The observations that these geniuses were making at the time, can't be just thrown away because they had real data on what they were doing. Even though some of them are, like being cast aside, like Freud and some others, because of their supposedly the years that they lived had certain prejudices and they were influenced by those prejudices. Well, that's probably true with everybody, no matter when they lived. But I just wanted to mention those two books, especially The Varieties of the Religious Experience. I'm glad you put it in there, Chuck. There was one other thing, but I can't remember what it was now, so I have to think about it.
That's okay. I'm just pulling that up. I know Anthony Peake recommends the bicameral mind a lot, which is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, when I read that, it kind of, every time they do more research, I'm always looking for answers on. It isn't that you have these experiences on what causes them. It's why you have the experience that you have. I know that in one of Tony's books, I think The Doors of Perception or whatever it is, yeah, Opening the Doors of Perception. In that book, he equates a schizophrenic episode with epileptics like me who have these visions. And there's a lot of data on it. I mean, he's not just making that up. There's a lot of experiments that have been done, and it's fairly valid. They're not schizophrenics. I'm not a schizophrenic, but the episode is tied to that kind of opening of perception. But the question always comes down to, why do I see the things that I see? Not how does it work, not what opens the door, but why, when the door is open, I see this and you don't. Even though you have the same, like when I was in my support group for epileptics, a lot of them had these kinds of experiences, but they didn't see what I saw. They saw a complete hodgepodge of things that were very confusing. And I see unity and visionary experiences in color, and form, and so why do I see those things and these people don't, and they have the same exact symptoms that I do, and they have the same cause? So I think it's more interesting once science comes up with, well, yeah, you have this opens that, and A opens B, and B makes C, and blah, 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 blah. Well, that's all good and fine, but why is it that I have the kind of experiences that I have, and my colleague over here has a separate kind of experience that doesn't help them at all? All it does is confuse them and make them very, very uncomfortable, and their recovery is completely different than mine. Mine's to make art, and their recovery is to just sleep. So I wanted to put that in the consciousness realm too, because there's a lot of studying being done about this. In fact, Tony refers to it quite a few times in his discussion of schizophrenia, when he ties it to epilepsy. And at first I was really insulted by using the word schizophrenic. And then later on, after I looked at the research, I thought, okay, all right, they have a point. But again, to finish this off, but my point is, so why do I see what I see, and why do these other people see what they see? And what they see may not even be helpful, and may be very, very negative. It may be just confusion. And with me, it's not confusion. It's an image that is produced and that I reproduce on canvas. And no one can explain that to me. No doctor, no one so far. So it's just a fascinating, another fascinating event in consciousness, like DMT experiences and things like that. It's kind of more like that than it is epileptic experiences that are very confusing, and a lot of headaches, and a lot of colors and zigzag lines, and like advanced migraine. But I don't see that. When I have mine, I see other dimensions, other worlds, other places. And so if it is a ischemic attack or schizophrenic, quote, schizophrenic connection with epilepsy, then it's very different than other people that I've known who've had the same event in their brain, but their brain doesn't produce what mine does. So why? And so far, I don't have an answer. Totally doesn't give an answer. So if there's anybody else, I know a lot of neurologists, and none of them have come up with an answer on So I wanted to throw that in, how complicated consciousness can be. And no matter what the trigger is, if the trigger is DMT and you're taking DMT and you have a different experience entirely than the other person, then they have nothing. Or if they're taking, when I did that peyote thing with the Native Americans, a lot of people saw nothing. They just got sick on the peyote, but they didn't see really anything. They saw some color and some light and stuff, but that's all they saw. And other people saw, visions of various kinds, angels and places and trees and things that came alive, like I did. And so it's just fascinating why certain brains pick certain things and others don't. And there's got to be a reason. I'm sure there is.
Most definitely. I mean, it's one of those things that we really like to know which way around it is, because obviously we've said before, it's like tuning in, and it's altering your tuning frequency to accept more by dropping a few more filters to allow more information in, which is fascinating in the way that it happens. Again, you've had the same similar kind of event, haven't you, Ian, with experiencing more sensory input in different states when it's emotional?
Yeah, you could say that. That's a pretty fair description of it.
Would you feel comfortable in expanding on how it actually felt getting that extra input compared to the standard bandwidth that you normally had?
Well, it depends on the situation, doesn't it?
You can pick it if you want to describe.
Well, I'm just trying to think how best to describe it. So I don't know. I'm going to talk about, let's say things are being discussed in a room full of people, right? Say like business things with outcomes. There will come a point sometimes where things are being said and they're like, right, this is going to happen and this is how it's going to play out. And at that point, I'll just know that that's either correct or incorrect. And I would say that I've got a 95% accuracy rate. When I say this is how it's going to turn out, if you do that, I'm normally 95% in the ballpark. So that's,
is that because you're reading the person, or is the emotional content you're feeling from the room, for example?
no idea. It's like if you said, I don't know, I'm going to plant walnuts tomorrow, and you were trying to make that into a business idea as a loose example, and you had a forecast, something that you were expecting to come from that little adventure of yours. In the setting that I'm in at work, those conversations that happen, occasionally I'll just turn around and be like, nope, that's absolutely not gonna how it's gonna turn out. It's gonna turn out like this. This will happen, that will happen, and it will happen in this sequence by this date. And yeah, but that's not so that's like one sort of thing. And I wouldn't say that's like emotion driven. I don't know what that is. It's just
can that happen as well on phones? Can you do the same thing?
Yeah.
If someone was giving you content and then you go, oh, actually.
Yeah, it's not driven by it's not driven by being there with someone. It's just driven by what they're saying to me with respect to something. So I'm using it in a business context right now, but it could be any context. Let's say it's simply put, someone makes a suggestion, or I make a suggestion to myself, and the worse that outcome will be, the more I will recognize it. So if it's just going to be like, it'll be fine, no issues, then I normally won't question it. But if there's going to be something not good happen along the pathway, then I will start to seriously question it. And if it's something personal, then that might extend a bit further into like full-blown like anxiety attacks and things like that, depending on what the thing is and what the action has to be. But yeah, it's a weird thing. I suppose there's also so I haven't been in serious danger really that often, but one incident comes to mind that I think is sort of another good example where maybe you could ascribe it to feelings or picking up on something. But to cut the story short, me and a busload of my friends, we all went down to Falmouth for the day, and we were there and we were having a look at the beach and the cliffs. And apparently it's something that you can do when the tide is out, to walk around the cliffside from one point to the next. And so without being smart enough to actually check the timetables before we went on this little adventure, we all busted onto the cliffside. And there came a point where I was just struck by this realization that if I was to continue much further, I was going to be in poop so deep that there was probably not much way I was going to get out of it unless the Coast Guard was going to come and get me. So I just told everybody, right, I've had enough of this. And I just turned around and started hightailing it back. And I think I made it. I think me and a couple of my other friends went back at the same time, because the rest of them were determined they were going to do this. And yeah, I think it was about 5 minutes, maybe less, when we'd actually got back onto the safety of the, the sidewalk and the actual land proper. Yeah, the tide was almost in, and yeah, these guys had to be like pulled up the side of a cliff with the water lapping around at their heels. I don't know. That was yeah, a very sudden realization, and with a touch of fear on it, that yeah, something needs to happen now, and it's not carrying on doing what you're doing. You need to turn around and go back right now. So yeah, yeah, I hope that's insightful to you and not just me rambling.
No, it most definitely is, because you're interpreting information without having solid told or visuals in front of you, aren't you? You're picking up and making a very good judgment call.
It's something. I guess you could call it a sixth sense, but it's not spoken. But the only way I can describe it is you go from being in a state of doing whatever you're doing and your mind's wandering and you're quite happy doing whatever it is that you are doing, to all of a sudden you have an awareness, but that awareness is so acute, it literally has the same impact as words to you. So it isn't
state, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's that kind of liminal state. You've lulled yourself into not really thinking, you're just doing a job, and then suddenly additional information is just coming on a different wavelength. You've kind of made yourself open in a manner.
Yeah, if you like. I mean, I can't really remember the mindset that I was in most times before, but yeah, that could be very, very key to it, to be fair. Hey, Shadow Fox.
Hello, Shadow Fox. Just welcoming you in. Got some questions and information from Brad, which has been coming in to
yeah, I see that.
The direct messaging here. Going back, just check with Shadow Fox that her audio is working. Are you in?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. It's nice to hear you after all these days.
I know. Hi.
Just to make you aware, we are actually live streaming to YouTube as well. We haven't tried that before, so we thought we'd try that, as we did Twitch last time. And the discussion's going well. Obviously, we can't edit out of the live one in YouTube as it's going out. But obviously, when we record this and change it into a podcast, then we can edit out bits. So just remember to keep anything really personal before I have to edit anything, which should be good. So anyway, going back to Brad's bits, Brad said, we're going back to animals and wondering with how they identify people are in either the state for epilepsy or for dying. And his question was, whether cats go to a person because they would be attracted to a person close to death or attracted to a person close to sleep. And again, I could add on to that. Normally, if you've got a smaller animal coming towards you when you're going to sleep in the outdoors, they're kind of using you as a protector. So that's quite an interesting one to add into the thoughts on this. But has anyone got any thoughts on what Brad just put there? Otherwise, I'll read the second one from Brad, which he sent to me.
Well, I know that.
Oh.
Sorry,
I was just going to ask, could you just run through that again? I'm looking at Brad's second message and it looks really interesting, but
well, I'm going through the first one. The first one was relating back to animals and whether, because we know that cats and dogs can sense when a person's dying, and they will actually be able to identify, as Myron said, that you could take, say, for example, a cat in, it would actually find the person who's terminal and know that. So his question is whether cats go to a person because they would be attracted to a person close to death or attracted to a person close to sleep.
Well, I think in the case of the hospitals, the animals in hospitals, I am, according to the doctors that I have talked to, the animal's not trying to sleep with the person, because they'll walk right away from somebody who's not terminal, and they'll go find somebody who's terminal and get right in bed with them. So that I know is true because I've actually seen it with my own eyes. I don't understand it, but I have seen it. And the doctors, when we were standing in this particular ward, were shocked that the cat, they put him on one bed where a person was sleeping because he looked like he wanted to sleep. And he sat down next to the person. This person wasn't terminal. And he immediately got up and went like 8 or 9 beds away to another person who was terminal and went and lay down with that person and never left. So that speaks for itself. That can't be misinterpreted. And they had, the nurses were telling me, you get a lot more information from nurses because they're with the patients constantly. The nurses were telling me that these kinds of things go on all the time when they bring animals into the wards, whether they're dogs or cats. And so somehow they know that this is the terminal person, and that one is just someone who's recovering from surgery or something like that. And it's not terminal. So that's my input on that question.
It'll definitely be interesting to check up. I mean, Azure, as we know, also comes from a medical background. She might have some information on that. I mean, Shadow Fox, have you experienced anything with animals like that?
A little bit, not as much as maybe perhaps some others, but I am aware that animals can alert if someone starts to become in distress. So I'm just trying to follow. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I'm so late. I had some stuff to do at the hospital.
Don't worry.
So I do
okay?
apologize.
Are you okay? I was just saying to Shadow Fox.
No. It wasn't for me.
Well, we got to check. Got to make sure. Need you around for a long time, which is good. Okay, I'm going to go on to the second part that Brad has put into the direct messaging, and he says that I am checking the experiences, but when I go to a point without images, there was a point where I got elvish imagery, listening to a person. Then he had told that he was fantasizing about elvish girls. It needs rechecking because it could have been precognition, because I saw a girl in elvish cosplay last week. So that's kind of sounding on the picking up of a telepathy kind of information, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were getting at. That's how I heard it.
And also putting in with the fact that he might have been, well, it's kind of a synchronicity, really. If he saw a girl in elvish cosplay the previous week and doesn't normally see people in cosplay outfits at all in normal day, and then suddenly meets up with a guy and then realizes that while he's talking to the person, suddenly gets this imagery within his head about elvish girls, and then find out about them from the bloke. Yeah, so that is interesting on many levels, I feel. Because like with Pete's, if you haven't heard Paranormal Blips episode 23, he had a synchronicity where he was being talked to. Well, actually, he was having a conversation. He wasn't being talked to. He hadn't done anything wrong as far as I know. And it was all about parachutists. And one guy who was a video filmographer who would jump out of a plane with his kit on and do the actual filming of the event. So this one guy does it, jumps out, but with all his film kit on and everything else, he'd actually forgot to strap the parachute to him. So he'd gone out without it. And obviously, lucky enough, one of the other parachutists grabbed him and obviously took him to the ground. Later on that day, he's up in the plane with another batch of people going to film them. But he strapped everything on, even though he had the previous incident. He doesn't actually strap another parachute on, and then no one saves him in the next one. So while Paranormal Blip was talking with his friends, they started then talking about the name of the guy, which then linked into, if I get this correct, because I'm doing it from memory, about a particular guy who was filming and living with bears, and he ended up getting killed by these bears. And there was a film, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. Ian, do you know the name of the film?
Oh my God!
I think it was set in Canada or something like that.
Exactly.
Well, I'm going to have to look up Spotify and find out if Paranormal Blip. Can you talk Paranormal Blip at the moment? Yes, you can.
Yeah, I can. This is very entertaining, me hearing you trying to remember the story.
I was close. I'm sure I was close.
You're doing very, very well. The film is called Grizzly Man, and it's by Werner Herzog. Do you want to continue? Go on, you keep going.
No, we'll take it from the horse's mouth, I think, best, because you've got the information.
But that's true, and I am the horse. The cows have gone from the... Oh, no, they're still in the field. No, there's just one cow. This is cow updates in Devon. So what happened was that so Grizzly Man contains this. So that's it's a documentary by the filmmaker Werner Herzog that came out about 10 years ago, something like that. And in the film, it's footage of this guy whose name is Timothy Treadwell, who was kind of obsessed in a very kind of unhealthy way with grizzly bears. He thought that grizzly bears wouldn't do him any harm, that they were cuddly, and that they all loved him. And he was just clearly didn't understand the risks involved in, being into bears. And the bears, after years of kind of filming them and hanging out with these grizzly bears, the bears killed him. And he would film these bears, and the attack was filmed. And so in the film about this guy, the audio of the attack is kind of like footage that Herzog has got. And so Herzog, quite a famous scene in the film, listens via headphones to the audio of the attack, okay? And then he says, only, nobody can hear that. No one can ever hear that. So we're having this 3-part WhatsApp conversation, me and 2 friends of mine. One's called T and one's called G, right? That's like what I'm calling them, because I tell you, but it's going live on YouTube. So I feel like I have to kind of anonymize them a little bit. So G says, there's is kind of audio of this parachutist, the kind of fatal, whatever landing or whatever, because he filmed it all, but I haven't, that's not really my kind of cup of tea. I haven't listened to it, but it does exist apparently. And then my other friend T said only Werner Herzog can listen to the audio, which is an amazing joke if you know Grizzly Man, yeah? And I do know Grizzly Man, and I thought, cool, that's an amazing joke. Well done, T. But if you don't know Grizzly Man, it's a bit, it takes 20 minutes to set up the joke. But nevertheless, it is a very, very good joke. I'm not taking anything away from the joke. So then my friend G then started talking about this other kind of accident, a stunt-based accident, which was connected to this old TV show that some of you, I'm sure, Paul, you remember, the Late Breakfast Show.
Yes.
With Noel Edmonds. So this was a show, Noel Edmonds, for people that aren't based in the UK, a huge TV star in the 80s and 90s. And then he went on to do Deal or No Deal. So like for years and days, probably about 3 decades, it was like right at the top of the kind of light entertainment tree. And he had this show called The Late Breakfast Show. And in that show, he had this kind of little, whatever, like part of the show, which was called Give It a Whirl. And on Give It a Whirl, a member of the public would do a stunt, okay? And this poor dude, this guy whose name is Michael Lush, he was nominated by his girlfriend, who's about 23 years old. And his like stunt was to do a bungee jump. But in the rehearsal, they really messed up in terms of the, safety procedures. And it was a fatal, basically he plunged to his death. And in the inquiry, there was so many mistakes made. And anyway, my friend G was kind of mentioning this. And what happened basically is that there was a problem with the carabiner. And a carabiner is, when you're mountaineering, it's the thing that you kind of clip your ropes onto, which is like this little metal device, yeah? So we got these 2 strands going on. My mate's talking about the carabiner. And then he sends us the Wikipedia page of the carabiner. And the carabiner is invented by Otto Herzog. Duh, duh, duh. So that's the coincidence. The name Herzog appears in, quite quick succession, like in a couple of minutes. So there we go.
Yeah, but the last part to that, before we get to Myron, is that you were searching for the frequency of Herzog as a name, and you actually used a website which is called Forebears, Forebears, and that also links back to the death, because you were looking for synchronicities, and that was quite a bizarre one to link in.
That is right, yes, Forebears. And because I thought that, if Herzog is like the kind of German equivalent of Smith or whatever, then it probably, reduces the chance of, it kind of increases the chance of it just being randomly mentioned. Do you know what I mean? But it is actually quite an obscure name. But yeah, you love the bears, don't you? The Forebears link.
Well, I just thought you didn't spot it, you see.
No, I didn't. I still, maybe I should do another episode about that.
Well, this now links back on the fact of where we got, obviously, with Brad, we're connecting up with the Elvish and the information there. But I'm going to go over to Myron, because thanks for the explanation on that, but it kind of fits right in.
The Grizzly Man thing, the really interesting part of it, besides, most of the film was taken by the Grizzly Man himself. He filmed 10 years of being in Alaskan wild with on the Grizzly Maze with all these grizzly bears, and some experts in animal behavior said that the bears probably thought there was something wrong with him, and that's why they didn't bother for 10 years, because they thought, well, whoever this human being thing is, he's obviously not playing with a full deck, and we don't want anything to do with him. And But what's pretty fascinating about this guy, if you haven't seen this documentary, you should see it, because he makes himself up to recover from alcoholism. And he creates this person, this persona called Grizzly Man. And he goes into the wilds of Alaska and to save the bears. But the place he goes to is a wildlife preserve. He doesn't have to save the bears at all. They're already protected. They can't be hunted or anything else. But he goes there under this new personality that he created, that he claimed he was an Australian. And he wasn't from Australia, he was from Southern California. Actually, originally Florida, but he was spending most of his time in Southern California when he was drinking and on drugs, and he was killing himself with all of these toxic chemicals. And then he decided to turn into this grizzly man. And then he would go and talk about the bears with children and schools, and he did all that pro bono and free. And he created a mythological life around himself. And the morning that he was killed, unfortunately, he took his girlfriend with him. What really happened was all the bears that knew him over the 10-year period, they kind of knew who he was, and they had gone to hibernate. And normally he would not come back during this time of the year because it's late in the season and all the bears are going to hibernate. So he comes back with his girlfriend, and the last thing he shoots 5 minutes or 40 minutes before he's killed and she's killed is this testimony about how his life has been wonderful and how it's all been very magic, and that, you know, if the bears kill him, so much the better. I mean, that's a good way for him to go out, and he wouldn't want anybody to take vengeance on the bear if the bear were to kill him. And he goes on and on and on, and then within an hour of that tape, the camera had a lens cover over it, so they only have the audio. They don't have the visual of the actual attack, but they can hear the girl screaming and him screaming, him saying, "Get out, get away, get away, get away," as the bear is killing him, and the death sounds that go with that. And she's trying to beat him up with a frying pan, and the bear's just kind of ignoring him. Well, this particular bear was not part of the grizzly maze. He had come down from another area before going into hibernation, so he'd never seen this bear before. And they think that's the reason that this bear attacked them, because he was hungry and he didn't know them. All these other bears, they'd spent 10 years with him. And now, of course, they came and they shot the bear and killed him and then opened him up and found parts of both of them inside the bear. And, but he said in the tape, if a bear ever kills me, do not kill the bear. It's not the bear's fault that I'm happy. I mean,
be interesting to know whether, if he had arrived back and some of the hibernating bears that he knew were not hibernating, and he was around them and this other bear came towards him to attack him, I wonder if they would have felt he was part of a pack and tried to either protect him in some manner. It would have been interesting to see that, because he got that with dolphins.
I mean, it's what's amazing is that he could get really close to them, even pop them on the nose when they were coming out of the water after when they were fishing for salmon, and they would just leave them alone. And the expert bear guy was saying they probably really thought there was something wrong with him, that he wasn't, because he didn't act like normal human beings act. You know, he was very different, and they probably thought he was retarded or something. That's what this expert was saying. But I have a feeling that they would have come to his defense, because this other bear was not from this area at all. And So it's a fascinating documentary. It's the kind of thing that Herzog does anyway. He makes wonderful documentaries. And when he was listening to the tape, since the visual was not present, just the audio, he did make it clear to just destroy this. He was talking to his girlfriend, and he was saying to her, you don't want to listen to this. You want to really destroy this. This is really terrible, and you really want to destroy this. And I don't know if that actually took place or not, but that was his suggestion. Another movie that might be interesting about consciousness and stuff called My Dinner with Andre. Do you know that movie?
The name rings a bell. I'm going to have to look it up. And,
look it up. It's a 2-hour film with two guys talking. For 2 hours they just talk, and one of them is the rationalist, and the other one is this mystical guy, and they're both famous in movies. One's a director, Wallace Shawn is an actor, and the other guy is a director in real life. And they shot this film in a restaurant, and it's just a 2-hour dialogue between these two men on these two different ways of looking at the world and looking at consciousness. And the director character, he's not really a character, he actually went through these things, goes on this long journey into consciousness and to expansion of consciousness. And it's an amazing film. They spent like $2 million on it and made $20 million. So it's directed by a French director who's really famous. And when you look at the film, you think, well, what is he directing? Two guys sitting at a table in a restaurant. Well, it's a lot more complicated than that. It's very subtle, but their discussion is so powerful that you don't get bored. You just listen to both sides, and it's fascinating. He talks about some places in Scotland, that Findhorn is the name of it. You might know it. And Findhorn was a place where they dealt with animals and they dealt with perceptions and with consciousness and all kinds of things. And they even would grow a different garden for predatory insects to go and eat, and they would leave the other garden alone. I mean, they did all kind of experiments like that. So I highly recommend My Dinner with Andre. It's a fascinating 2-hour discussion about rational thinking and not so rational thinking.
Oh yeah, I've just put that into the chat, and
there's one quote that's really good. This guy, the director, let's see, Wallace Shawn, Andre Gregory, it's the other guy. Andre Gregory meets this actor that's coming out of this play he was on, and he's leaning against the wall and he's crying, and Gregory asks him what's wrong, and he says, I can live in my art, but not in my life. And that quote just hit me like gangbusters when I heard it.
Oh, definitely.
It's a very old film. It's got to be 30 years
1981.
old. Yeah, okay. Must be even older than I thought.
Because the guy, Wallace Shawn, he actually appeared, most people probably realize him from being in The Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah.
As Vizzini, and also he was a lot in makeup for Deep Space Nine as one of the Ferengi as well. So he's done many things.
He's been a character actor for years, in all kinds of films. And Andre Gregory is a pretty famous director of plays in the theater. So, and then they wrote the script themselves, and then they shot the film. They made a fortune. They thought they were going to lose money, and they ended up making a ton of money because the discussion was so interesting.
I'm going to have to pick that one up and find it, because I haven't seen it myself.
It's on YouTube, and it's
Is
free.
it?
Yes.
All right, I'll go and grab that link now. Has anybody else actually watched it? Who's in the room or on YouTube?
Yeah, I've got a really good story about this, actually. I love My Dinner with Andre. And a couple of years ago, quite a while ago, about maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was watching it with a group of friends. And we discussed afterwards, we said, what happened to those guys? Is Andre still alive? We kind of didn't know if Andre Gregory was still alive. And one of well, he's more like a friend of a friend, this incredible kind of curator that I know in London. He kind of left that night, having seen My Dinner with Andre, and in a couple of months he'd arranged for a reunion of Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory at the Royal Festival Hall in the South Bank, in front of, like a kind of sold out thing, which he kind of like he kind of chaired this discussion between them about making the film. And so that film is outstanding. I haven't seen it since then, actually. I haven't seen it for about 10 years, so I need to see it again.
I just watched it last night.
Right. Oh, well, yeah. It's brilliant. It's on YouTube, right? I'm going to watch it. Yeah, it's fantastic. It holds a special place in my heart because of that lovely kind of thing that happened afterwards, Yeah. But yeah, I thoroughly recommend it. It's absolutely outstanding. Yeah, it's brilliant. And it is subtle, and you kind of, you think, well, two guys talking, but it's absolutely extraordinary. I think it's basically, it happened to Andre Gregory. Everything he said, yeah.
All those things he described, he later talked about in an interview I saw, that he said he did all those things.
Yeah.
That thing in the forest with the women and and the automatic responses and all that stuff. He did all of those experiments, going out in the desert and eating sand. And,
yes. Yeah.
Yes. He kind of, and Wallace Shawn's reaction is so funny. He's such a rationalist, about his electric blanket. He doesn't want to give up his electric blanket. It's really those guys are great actors anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that, Myron. That's really, I'm definitely going to watch that again. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it again myself.
yeah, I thoroughly recommend it.
You're definitely making us all want to go and figure it out and see what's going on. I mean, obviously enough, we know what it's like to sit in a room for multiple hours and discuss things and not get bored. But that sounds like a really good one to actually look at how, again, if you say they're both discussing life from different angles and reality, it's going to be a good one to see.
Yeah, even cosmic consciousness and all the rest of it. It's all discussed on Gregory's side, and on Wallace's side is all reality. It's just reality. That's what he wants to talk about. After he hears all of this narrative, and all these things that go on, and they're metaphysical and physical and magical and all that stuff, he reacts to it. And his reaction is totally rational. Now, Wallace Shawn doesn't think that, but that's what this character in the movie thinks. And it's pretty fascinating retort of the irrational part of the Andre Gregory.
Okay, so if we take it a bit more on the metaphysical side and change it around to something we haven't really actually discussed for a while, it'd be interesting to go possibly, because there's such a wide range of views on this, we could think about how, what should we say, call it an egregore, call it a cryptid. We could go on to what people think of how Bigfoot is presented and why. That is another one which is discussed in many other places. But obviously you've got people like Soraya from Where Did the Road Go was talking that people actually have a sense of smell like sulfur, and maybe it's something popping into this existence in a form and then decomposing after a period of time and changing within this kind of environment. Ian, what's your opinion?
Oh, dude, I love Bigfoot so much. I can tell you so much about Bigfoot and absolutely nothing all
that
at once.
It's not, you've got loads of fan fiction Bigfoot stuff and imagery.
Well,
you're not doing the kind of Bigfoot
I'd call it
stories of a bad nature.
Some serious armchair research.
Good. That's where we want to go with it.
It's not as simple as I think people would like it. And there comes a point where after you get over the initial shock that there might actually be a flesh and blood animal roaming around out there, there's also a very high chance that there are other things roaming around out there that people are interacting with. And sometimes they look like Bigfoot, and sometimes they don't. It's a very, very weird place. And I think what makes it a good area to explore all sorts of topics is because there's the potential here for there to be another conscious being that is aware as we're aware, but has been isolated from us and our collective consciousness for so long that it's basically living a completely different life to us. And those regions that it inhabits are its regions. And so when you go in there expecting to be able to deal with nature as you would deal with a city or something like that, some people are finding that's not the case at all, because there is a different consciousness operating that's dominant in there. And so you do start to have stories and anecdotal evidence of extremely strange things. So Paul was talking about sulfur smells and things like that. Now, the two lines of thought on that could be that one, this creature smells kind of unpleasant. That's widely reported. But specifically, there are accounts of this smell being present in certain regions. And these are regions where these things supposedly are said to be able to shift between realities. And when I say that, I don't mean, say, going from, let me wind it back a bit. Let's take our reality now, and you can go into a forest and you can experience the forest as you would normally experience something. That is our reality, and these creatures are able to shift down from, say, a higher energy level into our one for a period of time. And the mechanism that they do that by sometimes does apparently tear the fabric of reality in such a way that it leaves that smell as a lingering artifact of what's happened. There are other accounts where these creatures are able to slip through completely without causing so much disruption to the environment, but any witnesses present to this are very much disrupted within their own minds. So, and I'm going to paraphrase this a lot, but this is a story that was in, I think it was Bigfoot, Terror in the Woods by, oh gosh, I can't remember the name, the name of the author now. Anyway, he's got a podcast as well, but I'll get back to you on the name of it. But he's speaking to a witness, and this guy is in search and rescue. And there has been a lady go missing on this mountaintop. And he's out there with a team, and he's walking up the side of a mountain. And as he's walking up, his perceptions start to change. He notices maybe a faint buzzing in his ears before a mist vaguely descends over the people that he's with and around him. And after a short while, he believes that the team he's with decide to turn around, or one of the team members is injured and sits down, and he's gone on a bit, and he's turning around to come back and see the rest of the team. That's his recollection. And as he's doing it, this mist that he's in, that he thinks everybody's in, it gets thicker and thicker and thicker, and it starts to swell. And his description is that in the middle of this mist in front of him, where it's swirling the most, a portal opens up, and he describes a massive Bigfoot staring back at him through this portal. And it telepathically says to him that it took the woman, and at any point it could take him too. And then the portal closes and the mist dissipates, and he finds himself completely lost. His teammates don't know where he's gone. He was living this experience in his mind where he was still with this group, and maybe for a couple of minutes while this event took place, he wasn't directly looking at them. And then as soon as it cleared up, he didn't know where he was. They'd been looking for him for about 20 minutes. And his recollection of the events that took place leading up to that were just completely different to everyone else's. Plus, they never found the woman. So I think that's the difference in nature when you go to an environment that is so remote and so wild that whatever does live in there, it does not play by the rules that you play by. And I suppose some people are more receptive to it than others, and some people are just very unfortunate that they run into it. But that higher level sort of external consciousness that exists all around us, that generally we don't have to deal with in our normal day-to-day lives in the city or whatever, that rule is not there when you go into these remote areas. And so yes, you might find yourself in direct contact with something else, and it might not even be Bigfoot, it might be nature spirits, it could be anything masquerading as anything. Because again, if you're going into these areas with expectations of what you might see, what you might not see, what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, that might dictate somewhat the response to that consciousness out there that you're interacting with. And so you might see something that is way out, but it will be something that is somewhat familiar to you. So a lot of people now could go out and say they see Slender Man and things like that, which is a complete story that was made up on the internet a while back. But because that seed has been planted into our sort of collective consciousness now, when people do go out and they meet this other extended reality, if you will, it will interact with them in a way that will be familiar with them. And so if you're familiar with Slender Man and that is something that you think is maybe real or whatever, then that's what you might see. If you think Bigfoot, you might see a Bigfoot. But there's definitely more to it than just going out and looking for large wild animals out in the wilderness.
Definitely, it is like a Tulpa kind of thing when you're putting the belief into it. Myron's got a comment there, but before that happens, Ian, can you send me the email link for this room that I gave to you? Because Mike can't remember his password to get in, so we'll have him come in duplicate as yourself if you just give me that link.
Yeah, 2 seconds, dude.
Over to yourself, Myron. And Myron, I think if you take yourself off mute, we will be able to hear you.
Right, dude, I've found the message. Let me just forward this.
I was going to make a point and back up what was Ian was saying, and that is that there are locations that are virtually unexplored. Like in Canada, the middle part of Canada, it's all forest now, and it's virtually unexplored. There's been some people that have gone through some of it, but most of it's unexplored. So what's in there and what could be produced by consciousness or whatever no one really knows. There's a very famous place in the United States, in Arizona, called Superstition Mountain. And it's in Arizona. And people have been disappearing in Superstition Mountain for hundreds of years. They just go there and they don't come out. And of course, there's all kinds of mythological stories that are made up about what happens to them and all kinds of things.
There's also Brown Mountain, isn't there, as well? That's another similar kind of place.
Yeah. And then that big rock in Australia, you know, the red one, the big rock that the Aborigines don't want anybody climbing on. So anyway.
Uluru, I think that is, if I've got it right.
Right. Yeah, so Superstition Mountain, like for instance, they had some scientists went into Superstition Mountain and decided once and for all to see if they could come up with any reasons. Now, in 100 years ago, there were Indians that were protecting certain things in Superstition Mountain, which supposedly there was a lot of gold there and stuff like that. And people were running all over it trying to find the gold, and then these Indians would just kill them. And but that was like 100 years ago, maybe 200 years ago. Up until normal times, like just a few years ago, some scientists went into this mountainous area, and I was going to tie this in with what Ian was saying, is that they discovered that the weather system in the mountain is so unpredictable that you'll be walking along and everything will be normal. You know, it'll be sunny, it'll be bright, you know where you're going. There's no problem with perceptions or anything else. And all of a sudden, the weather completely changes, winds blow, and sometimes people get blown right off these hills. And there's some electromagnetic stuff that goes on during those transitions of the weather on the mountain itself. It's a very big place. There's a giant river, and so the more research they did, the more they found that there were all of these physical manifestations of energy that could change like that in a dime. It could change, and human consciousness can't deal with that. They're not ready for it, and people would get lost within a mile of each other. They would just walk. They'd walk off, and then they would get lost, or they would park their car like 3 miles away and never be able to find it again, and on and on and on like that. So there are this big signs outside of. I've been there, so there's big signs outside that say, enter at your own risk. Don't go alone. Never go into this mountain by yourself. Take a lot of water and supplies and all kinds of things.
Oh, definitely. Shadow Fox.
Yeah, I just like to make a comment because so many people walk into different arenas, okay, in nature, like if you're talking about what Myron was, any of these areas, even the backwoods of your house, for instance. So many people just walk into this arena without, let's just say, an awareness of everything that is there. And it's almost like a bull in a china cabinet. And there was when my children were little, they were in the Girl Scouts, and they were having a camp out, and we had to walk through this. It was quite a walk to get to this area, and the entire troop, so to speak, walked down this path, and they were loud and obnoxious and picking up rocks and throwing them. And the idea was to be able to see a little bit of nature. And so I had instructed my children to fall back a little bit. And a couple the other kids stayed with me. And I just asked them, just be quiet. Think about the animals. We're in their terrain, right? And then we're being loud and obnoxious, they're going to run. You're not going to see anything. And so there was quite a bit of time that had taken place, and we were just observing and pointing out poison ivy and all these good kind of things, right? Like what not to get into. And all of a sudden, my daughter turns around, she goes, "Mommy, look." And there was a deer with a baby, the fawn. And the children just turn and look, and I says, because we were quiet and we were observing, we were able to see. And this is the same thing, like when people go into these areas, like Myron was talking about, well, let's go explore, let's go check this out. And they're just, it's like, there's no respect. And that's the majority of why these people don't come out. And even the indigenous that live out in that area, when they go there, if they go there, there is, let's just say, a great amount of respect. Even they honor that. And many of them won't even enter in that area. So these are the things, these mechanisms of just becoming cognizant in one with that nature in that area that you're in. You would be amazed at what you can see. There were so many times we were in wooded areas, and, you're talking about Sasquatch or Bigfoot. There are so many mechanisms that they put in place, like stay out, and you can look for the signs and see them. And yes, I have been in areas where they were, and we just respected it. If you, why go to a home if you're not welcome, right? So just so that you can see something, I think that's a little rude. That's my point.
Definitely, you got to have the right intention when you go into these places. Again, it's like, if you don't threaten something, then it's not going to really threaten you in those kind of ways. If you go in looking like you're going to be violent and mischievous, then you're just going to put everyone on edge in that fashion. As I was mentioning before, I've just put into the chat section, you got Joshua Caption, who's got some very good podcasts as well as his books, From Bigfoot to Extended Consciousness. And again, the link's there as well.
Yeah.
And
Oh, sorry. Could I just recommend a couple other books by Joshua Caption and Timothy Renner?
You may. I would have got there, but go on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Where the Footprints End, Volume 1 and 2. It's about Bigfoot and weird stuff about Bigfoot. So they're very good books, very informative as well.
Okay, I didn't realize you stopped. We'll have to start having communication on when we've paused on those things. I was reading a message which Pete has just sent us. He's having to go into silent mode at this present time. He has a question and wonders if the audience can help with this. And it's, what do you mean by the collective conscious? And how is this different from Jung's collective unconscious? He's also said, thanks for a brilliant conversation, with a heart emoji even.
Thanks, Pete. That's a good question. That's a very good question. I think the way I was using collective consciousness, probably I meant it in maybe the same way as the collective unconscious, but it doesn't sound right to use that term anymore. So I called it collective consciousness, because it is our day-to-day operating consciousness. Is it? I don't know. Maybe it's not. I'm not sure.
According to Jung, since he coined the phrase, the collective unconscious is a universal unconscious that can permeate civilization or a certain time, and it's an unconscious thing that is group oriented. In other words, before World War I, he had all these people coming to him saying, we're having these dreams, about being in a big war, and this was like in the 1900s, so it was quite a long ways away from World War I. And he wrote them all down. All the patients had brought it up. And it was one of his examples of collective unconscious. In other words, they're dreaming something that is going to take place in the future, and they don't even know what it is. They didn't know anything about it could ever be a world war. And and then he contrasted that with the personal unconscious. The personal unconscious is your unconscious, what your unconscious thinks and experiences and gives you insights. And it can dip into the collective by the collective creating archetypes without knowing how those archetypes are created or why they're created, but they are created by unconscious people, collective unconscious people, i.e., you could start, like you could say that Germany in the 1930s and 40s had a kind of collective unconscious experience that was tapped into by Hitler's amazing speeches at Nuremberg. And so it connected to these old archetypes in the collective unconscious that have existed in that culture for millennia. And then it went from collective unconscious to collective conscious. That means they signed up for fascism. And so that's the difference between the personal unconscious of Jung's idea and the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious, you don't even, it's just a universal thing that's going on, like what's going on in the United States right now with wokeism and all of these various kinds of behavioral modifications that are going on. Now that's become personal unconscious, but it used to be collective unconscious. So that's the difference between those two things, according to Jung.
We hope that Peake can send us back a bit of information to see if that's helping to clear up the issue.
Yeah, that helped for me. That was awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you, Warren.
He got there very quickly, and he's been typing prior to me obviously saying anything. So he says, "Oh, thank you. So do you think this is connected to Sheldrake's theory of morphic resonance and habits in nature?" Again, I don't see why it cannot be connected to it, because everything is, and again, as Pete says, he says, yes, that was awesome to yourself, Myron. And we don't know all the strands to what the single consciousness can do. Shadow Fox?
Yeah. Can I just add something in here for you guys? It does have to do, it's actually, I watched it, I guess, I don't know, about a week ago or something. But it is called Secrets of Somatics, Cymatics, and it's by John Stewart Reed. It's on YouTube, and he is, I don't know if he's a physicist, but he was doing research and he developed this, it looks like, he calls it, it's like a petri dish, okay? But it resonates sound, and they were utilizing it with water, and the stuff that he was coming up with it, and because we're talking about consciousness also, and water holds consciousness. And this one that I watched was about 30 minutes long. There's two of them. One's a little bit longer. The one I watched was the 30-minute one. But towards the end, some research with
just a quick
dolphins.
question.
Yeah.
Is it the purple?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I've got the right one. So I'm going to put that into the chat box.
Yeah, because I can't do it from this device, or I would have sent it to you. But what ends up happening towards the end, I won't do a real spoiler alert, but they figured out that through the sound resonance actually creates pictures. And when the dolphins were involved, they sent this sound out like with a planter with a flower in it or something with the hand, and it actually showed up, and the dolphins actually responded. So they took a picture. It was like, so it's almost like, when you really think about it, is create that language of what and how the dolphins actually see or communicate. And again, when we're talking about consciousness, it's like animals respond to the energies that are around us in all different types of mechanisms. Whether like the horse whisperer and a dog whisperer and all of this, it's no different. But what I found fascinating with this YouTube video, which is like a conference. So, I mean, for anybody that really likes research and stuff, Ian, yes, I think you're really going to enjoy it. So, it's fascinating all the way around, but I think this kind of also helps bridge that gap to what we're trying to speak about and what science is actually stepping up and trying to do, because even our thoughts are energy, and it resonates, and they create frequencies. And when you're in that etheric aspect, everything can be picked up, just like a receiver, like a radio receiver. So it's like, when you're talking about what is consciousness, what is this, what is that, I don't necessarily believe there's one definitive definition, because it's a totality of the all, I believe. So I'll end. If that makes sense to you guys.
Oh, it does, very much so. I mean, it fits in and gives us more information on this. And I think previously we've talked about sound vibration with sand and shown it in different videos from YouTube that we were looking at. I think I've said that to yourself, Ian, and also possibly Myron, because we've seen this before.
You definitely went into it. I just wanted to say, that was awesome, Shadow Fox. That was, thanks for that link. And that made loads of sense. Sorry, Paul, go on.
Oh, no, I was just making sure that we've got it into the chat box there, and also just trying to see if Mike has made it into the room at the same time, pushing it in.
Are you sure that you can send him the same link that you sent me? Doesn't it generate like a different sort of password each time, or is it?
No, what happened last time when we did this, we had Myron come in and he ended up on Mike's one because we gave him Mike's one, and we just had to rechange the name. The problem that we've got at the moment when Mike was trying to get in is he's away, he doesn't have his actual ID for Zoom, so he's not actually logged in. So when using the standard link that we have, he wasn't being able to get in, but because you're already linked into the actual room, he can just bounce in off of yours.
Right, because I can try and send him an invite or something if you want.
Yeah, I'm just gonna check to see what's going on the other side of where he's communicating from and see what we can do with that. But it would be a fascinating video to talk about, the one that Shadow Fox has just been talking about. So
yeah, it looks good. I'm not going to try and watch it now, but
it will cause a bit
really
of trouble otherwise. And
it kind of does, like when Dr. Emoto was doing his work with water and sending it energy or words or anything like that,
and then freezing it.
Right. This takes it so much further. I just think it is you just really have to watch it, but it is like a scientific conference type of thing. It starts out that way, and it shows the device that he has made, and he even offers recommendations for how it could actually be utilized in healing because our bodies are made of water, so on and so forth. It, like CAT scans, things like that. It really is just phenomenal. So there's many different areas.
Oh, Shadow Fox,
really
I've got to pause you right now, because as soon as you said CAT scans, Myron's cat just meowed at the same time. And I just think fantastic on the synchronicity and fun part. Please continue.
yeah.
It
Oh,
was just
yeah.
making me laugh at that point.
Yeah, I just, it's like, I just thought you guys would really enjoy. And I know Ian will, because it just, yeah, it really is kind of nice, and especially when he brought in the dolphins. So I think that is, I mean, so many key elements are just right now coming into light. So, yep.
Hey, Paul, I just got kicked out of the meeting.
Sorry?
I just got kicked out of the meeting. Now I think I'm back now.
You are back, yeah, but
Yeah.
I didn't mute you.
No, I got
Yeah.
kicked out. I mean, it's completely gone.
That's interesting.
Something kicked me out. So,
Well, we have been having fun technology today, so
well, I've been trying out of better places than this.
I think we lost Melissa somewhere along the line.
yeah, Melissa had a phone call and she says it was nice to speak to everybody, but she's back to doing part of her work at this present time and needed to get on with that. But she's going to give me a response to see whether she's coming on the UK the 30th to Laird Scranton's actual talk on Zoom, which would be good. And I think Shadow Fox and Brad, you've both signed up already, haven't you?
Yes.
Excellent. That'd be good. And also, I think Myron's obviously signed up as well. I'm doing this from memory at the moment. I'm not looking at that particular screen, but that'd be good. I was also going to say that possibly in the next 15, 20 minutes that we'll round this one up, as we're doing two this week, and go from there, which would be good. I mean, I've got so many books still on my spreadsheet, as well as podcasts and videos, that this particular series of basically resources that we're putting together for people, I think will be useful, because I'm going to create already a Dropbox link so that people can actually pass that information around to others if they wanted to dip their toes in the water, and we can add to it as we go along. And Ian's been having ideas, haven't you, on this as well?
Yeah, I think this could be an absolutely superb resource, especially how you've got it set out and everything now. I was just going to say, like, I was looking through my library and it turns out that the best books I haven't actually read yet. So I'm really sorry about that. But
Get on with it.
I will do my best. But yeah, no, I think this would be super useful, because, and I accept that, you know, a lot of things are going up in the chat box here, but having things like all the links and that in the chat box, and having it in such a way that you know when it was there, what date the chat was there, and what links were in it, just as a resource, is a brilliant thing.
And the other thing is that we're not doing it from a silo point of view of just looking at one particular area. We've got so many different people's input that it will help us broaden our, well, one, education, and two, seeing what we think we feel with and fit with on information. And again, as we said, it's always best to take everything from multiple sides. Brad's just been passing information.
Yeah, I was just looking at Brad's message there.
Yeah,
that looks so interesting.
Talking about a good film about channeling tulpas and meat antenna, which okay, I'm gonna have to look that up first off, because I've got no clue. Oh, maybe it's right. So the film is called The Empty Man, the IMDb bit. Is that in connection with the same?
I think so.
Bit, Brad. Are those both connected together?
Yeah,
it might just
think,
be a different language interpretation of the film title, I think.
You know, a meat antenna. Like, I think
it's Duncan Trussell language.
Yeah, it's between Russian and English. That's where the translation's gone. Right. Okay, that's fine. I'm just confused about meat antenna because I've never used it in conversation.
Oh, I like that word now I've heard it. I want to use meat antenna more.
Well, instead of hello everybody, it'd be hello multiple meat antennas, because that's how consciousness is getting in. It's true.
No one's going to turn around and be like, oh, dude, you just misgendered a whole bunch of people right there. Like, you can just call everyone a meat antenna and everyone's going to love you for that. No one gets upset. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I think
Yes.
I'm going to, yeah. You're going to have to do that every show now.
Okay,
Like
so
as well.
I will design a t-shirt and we know what it will be.
Dude, oh my God, that's brilliant. Yeah, put it on a shirt.
So that'll come out well, won't it? We'll get that sorted out.
Instead of perceptions today, you can just put meat antenna and only us 6 people will know what that means.
We'd have to have a QR code just in the corner of the I mean, hopefully it's not misconstrued, because I've just had a bad case of misconstruing it in my own head. So just
that's half the fun of it. So
what do you mean by that, everybody?
Sorry?
No, it would just be people who read your t-shirt and they go, what do you mean by this? Well, sit down. I got 4 hours. Here we go. My friend Pete says, and also Brad, and lo and behold. Yeah, so we're going to be adopting that. It seems to have been very popular in the chat here. So,
well, it's a nice lead in, isn't it? Instead of people being like, our perceptions today, I probably know what that means, and walking off, they're going to look at meat antenna and be like, good Lord, what? And then they're going to stop and have a conversation with you that they might not normally have had. And when they leave, they're going to be like, I still don't know what a meat antenna is.
Join our cult and here we go. Yeah. So, the things we find out. It's great. Brad.
There's a film that I wanted to mention, and that was Picnic at Hanging Rock. You know that one?
Yes, the 1970s or 80s version.
Yeah, it's Peter Weir. And he also did The Last Wave, which is also really good. But the reason I brought it up is that in the film, the story is like a historical thing. I'm not sure that it was historical, but these girls just disappear and they're never seen again. And they go on this rock, this famous rock in Australia. And they even send Aborigines scouts out to find them, and they can't find them. They find a couple of them still alive, but 3 of them never come back. And the implication is that the main character has a premonition that this is her last day on Earth, and she's going to disappear. And she tells a friend of hers, a girlfriend of hers, that stop hanging on to me so much, because I am probably not going to be here much longer. And when they go on this picnic, it's just a picnic to this place, Hanging Rock. 5 or 6 of the girls go up hiking, and 3 of them disappear and are never seen again. And they never find their bodies. They don't know where they went. And 2 of them that were taken, like an abduction, like an alien abduction. 2 of them that are taken, they find later all scratched up and beat up a lot, but they have no memory of what happened to them. And it's a pretty fascinating expose into what can happen in isolated places that have magical powers, or at least the Aborigines thought it had magical.
Oh, definitely. That film made such an impact on me. I mean, it was 1975 when it came out, so I must have seen it probably 1978 or 80. And it stuck with me because obviously they're all the typical Victorian girls from a girls' school.
Right.
And not locals from the area, and that's where it all kind of goes wrong. But they did make a mini series in 2018. But
they did.
I would go with the original myself.
You see The Last Wave? It's another Peter Weir film with Richard Chamberlain.
I shall find that now.
That one is about an everyday lawyer who all of a sudden his perceptions start changing when he starts to defend some Aborigines who are supposedly murdered someone. And he just volunteers his time to defend them. And the main shaman recognizes that this is not just anyone. But this guy, this lawyer, doesn't even know who he is. He's really this very incredible being called a mercurial. And but he doesn't know that. And the whole film is his discovery of who he really is. And otherwise, he's just an Australian lawyer who's a tax lawyer who has nothing to do with the Aborigines. And his whole life is turned upside down with these visual hallucinations, and then him finding his own destiny. He finds the answer, but he has to go through this maze. It's a typical shamanistic journey that shamans take, and he's certainly the shaman in this story, because he's the Makuro, he's the Mokuro, I guess it's called. And
have you got any way of spelling that? Because I don't know how to spell
I sure don't.
But it's based in, obviously,
if you look up
Australia, and I'll knock that together.
If you look up picture the last wave, it'll probably be in the description.
I've put the last wave in there, and Pete's just said, good night, everyone. Thanks for a great evening of chat with the heart symbol again, which is kind of him. I'm just going to look that up and try and get the right spelling and definition of it while we speak. So if I sound like I'm kind of slightly disconnected, that's why. And hi, Miro, how are you doing? Are you back in? That's comedy, because I thought he'd have the opportunity to talk to me while I'm just flicking around and searching, but lo and behold, he's out on this. So, Ian, while I am looking for this and filling in time, have you got anything else that you'd like to put on the table before we finish it at past?
No. Actually, are we going to do this again, or is this sort of the last one?
You've obviously been listening really from the beginning, in the middle, and also I've been saying we're going to make this a series, but nobody.
Sorry, dude.
I mean, you're only a host. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Leave and walk away again.
Something happened, and it caught my attention, and I just drifted off completely for a minute. And when I came back,
I said this at the beginning. I've said it at the middle bit when people have come in. I've even said it in tweets.
At the beginning and the middle as well. Like, I know we've literally just discussed that spreadsheet that you're doing, but my brain's just not making connections in a normal way tonight for some reason. So you're going to have to just forgive me for
Thank you for functioning on all cylinders tonight. It's been most appropriate.
I was doing okay, actually. and then I thought I'd have some starters before my main meal. And I had sausages, and it was a bad idea because I haven't really been able to function quite that well after I eat them. But they were hella good sausages, man, I tell you now.
Yes, obscure, and also, yeah, I'm trying to read this IMDb review while I'm listening to you talk about sausages after coming up at that point. And it really does kind of hit my left and right hand side of my brain at the same time.
Well, the thing is since Ian's mentioning food, I'm in the kitchen and I'm trying to cook some dinner. So I'd like to know, of all of you guys, who's the one that likes the pepper? Because I'm cooking here and I grab not the salt, but the pepper.
Which kind of pepper?
It's a black pepper.
Right.
It was like sitting right next to the salt. And guess which one I just put in? It wasn't salt. Yeah.
I love black pepper all the time.
Okay, I'm gonna blame. So you're getting blamed, Ian. It's all
Excellent.
your fault.
I'm going to blame him as well for not listening. Yeah, I think we should all have a quick blame on Ian.
Hey, no hate or anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just was picking. It's like, why would I pick up the pepper for this? It's like, okay.
Ian's just.
I have spelling for you.
Oh, you do? Excellent. I can't find it at the moment. Right.
Found it. It's MUL.
MUL. Hang on, was that K?
Okay.
MUL.
MULKURUL.
Excellent. Got that. I can now go wandering. Yes, so it's probably Ian has been pushing his awareness across to you to make you pepperize everything.
It says, we're a race of spirits who come from a rising sun, bringing sacred objects with them.
Ah, that's interesting. It's also in French as well.
So there it is.
Okay. Yeah, rising sun, bringing sacred objects with them. They came from the sun.
And in his case, he was born and raised in South America, and he brings this magic with him when he moves to Australia. I think that's the way the story goes. But he is selected by the magic to be the Morpholo.
Yeah, this is great because you're providing a lot of good information to help out with the film.
That's fascinating movie. It's really good. Peter Weir's a great director.
Definitely, because as I said, that film stuck with me when I was below 10 when I first saw it. And I don't think I've seen this one, The Last Wave. I'm just reading as well as trying to pick up that.
Yeah, it was actually a big hit back when it came out. Probably because of Chamberlain, who's an American, but and he was young and really good looking in those days. Probably attracted a lot of people to theater, but
definitely
it was so metaphysical that it probably scared a lot of people.
I've just pulled up the mysticism page on it.
We're really great Aborigines. I mean, actors. If they're actors, I'm not sure they were all actors. I think some of them were not actors.
Yeah.
Especially the old shaman. I think he was not an actor. There was a
probably
young
speaking
guy,
the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a young guy that does a lot of movies. In fact, he did some of those films with the Crocodile Dundee thing. He was in those films.
Okay, yeah.
But he plays a young Aborigine that's in the modern city in this film, in The Last Wave. But his shaman, I don't think is an actor at all. I think the shaman is probably the real shaman. But I don't know about the shaman.
So to help out with people, there's a link I've just put. I'm reading Brad's one. No wonder it's confusing me.
Yeah, I read that one too.
It's the Where Cult Rocks. Yeah, wherecult.rocks/mysticism in the film of The Last Wave from 1977. And it goes into description. Brad's also now put in a film, which is a good episode about telepathy. If telepathy was switched by precognition, it would be his story. Right. Just going to click on that link to see where we go. The Hoodmaker. Where are we? Sci-fi drama made 2017. In a world without advanced technology, mutant telepaths have humanity's only mechanism for long-distance communication, but their power has been unintended implications when the public begin to embrace the mysterious telepath blocking hoods. Two detectives within, where are we? It's just changed. Now, two detectives with an entangled past are brought to investigation. Oh, interesting. That looks like a good film.
Right, doesn't it?
Yeah. worthwhile trying to pick it up from somewhere to see even the trailer of it. That should be good.
Could I just mention that the new season of Westworld has started on Sky now? It's really
Is
good.
it? Now, they said season 3 wasn't that good. Is that what happened?
I wouldn't say that, no.
I haven't seen it.
So you know the original Westworld concept, right?
Good old Yul Brynner.
Yeah, so this is like a whole lot darker and a whole lot more sort of behind the scenes bad things going on. And now these creations that they've had running in the park are basically sentient, and a few of them have gotten out. And obviously they're not very happy about the situations they've been in. So there's now sort of two factions, if you will, running amok in the real world. One of whom is trying to just destroy everything. And she's tasked the other guy to kind of stop her in this weird kind of, I don't know what it is. It's like good guy, bad guy thing, but it's really deep, and yeah, it can be a very uncomfortable watch at times. But I thought that all the seasons were really good, actually. I have nothing bad to say about them.
That's good. Right.
Right. Dude, did you mean to just say right and then mute yourself?
Of course I did. I'm self-editing. Nothing else can go wrong. No, don't say that. Right. Anyway, as I was saying, before we roll off into the distance, and I muted myself, we're all coming back, obviously, on the 30th, which is not too far from now.
That's correct.
Reconvene. At that time, Ian, I think you should have either eaten so that you don't get confused, or
sometimes eating is really good, and it helps you function, and you can just, get in there and you're the man. But sometimes I eat the wrong things at the wrong times, and it just knocks me for 6 and I want to pass out.
You don't want to eat where suddenly your whole body's just diverting all the oxygen to digesting everything, and then you just go into a stupor and then just start snoring on the microphone.
Picking the right meals at the right time is everything. But I will do that in future, definitely.
Excellent. So, Myron, hopefully your shoulder will get itself a bit easier for you to deal with.
Well, I hope so. He's killing me.
Now, am I spotting Tigger moving backwards and forwards there behind you?
No, he's here, but he's laying down now. He was standing up, and he did make that lovely noise.
Oh, I can see, because you're on a small screen on my screen. I'm watching the display behind you change to kind of like a background. Sometimes it changes over. I thought there was something moving behind you.
That thing behind me is a big painting.
No, the little screen underneath your lamp is what I was seeing change with colors, and I thought there was a black shape moving, because I know that your cat's black. Like now, it looked like it, but it's not. It's kind of possibly a screensaver thing. Anyway, Shadow Fox, it's nice to see you back. Of course, you said that you'll be here on Thursday. You can see my brain's disconnecting already. And also Miro will hopefully be around. I know Brad's up for it, which would be good.
I am here. I have just trouble with the microphone, like always. I don't know if you hear me now.
I can hear you now, which is good. And I always...
Sorry.
I just like the fact that you are thumping your phone now and again, just trying to make sure everything connects properly, which is good. Brad's just thrown an extra one into the box, which is the last one. All people who told my precognition looked and behaved like antagonists. Okay, I am the mutant. Okay, 1964. Scientist visits an isolated expedition on a planet plagued by radioactive dust storms. He discovers that one of the team has been mutated by the dust and gained telepathic powers, which he is using to terrorize the rest of the colony. Interesting. I haven't seen that
the
one.
Outer Limits.
Sorry? Oh, is it?
Hate a bit of the Outer Limits.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah, I haven't seen the actual. Didn't look. I was reading text before reading and looking at the graphics. Outer Limits is one of the good ones to be picking up. The same with. What was the competitor? I've just forgotten it. Outer Limits and
Twilight Zone.
Yeah, Twilight Zone. That was it.
That was it.
Superbly put in there, Brad.
That's amazing.
So many good stories.
Hey, did I mention before about I think it is a Travis. You know, he wrote 90 of the episodes out of 170 episodes or something.
Wow. That's a good set of
5 Emmys for writing. Because the writing is so good on that show. It's just amazing.
I remember sitting down watching that on a black and white TV. It was great.
Well, they're mostly black. They're all black and white.
Yeah, but at the time I didn't watch. Okay, that's quite correct. There's also been remakes of the Outer Limits and the Twilight Zone since, but they weren't as good as the black and white versions that I saw. This is interesting. Right. Ian, in the chat box, I got this message saying that there was one more, but when I click on it, I've only got Brad's last one of the Outer Limits one. That was it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the last one.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember the film I was going to mention. That was Meetings with Remarkable Men.
Meetings with Remarkable Men.
Yeah, it's about Gurdjieff. It's a biography of him in his early years. You know, the one that Ouspensky got all upset about. And it's a brilliant film. And it's called Meetings with Remarkable Men. And it's about the early life of Gurdjieff and how and then at the end you get to see these exercises that Gurdjieff invented, and it's pretty fascinating. It's
1969. Okay, what's
there's
that
a
gone
book. There's a book called Meetings with Remarkable Men too, as well. And because Gurdjieff's a big deal, and then of course Ouspensky was his main student. And you know, and Tony writes about Ouspensky a lot. So especially
I've really got to read his books.
You know that search for the miraculous by Ouspensky is a big deal.
Yeah, I'm trying to divert my time to reading everything, and I'm not getting there. I probably am achieving something, but I just feel like I'm really behind on everything. I think Ian feels the same way, don't you?
I think that's on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I'm struggling.
I have to know this. I think I saw it just not too long.
I shall put that in mind.
I all these movies, so I either watch them on disc or I watch them on YouTube.
Oh, definitely. Right. That was a good last 2 recommendations. So we're going to wrap this one up early, and we'll obviously be back on the 30th, which would be good.
Yeah, that was an absolutely superb chat, guys. Thank you so much.
Well, yeah, the amount of information I've been able to put into here through everybody supplying information and what's been going out. Also, I put it into the chat boxes on the YouTube live version as well.
Thank you.